tell us from a point of view of a company, big or small, a small vendor or a big manufacturing company, maybe producing goods to export or whatsoever environment, how can they plan for a situation of a positive COVID-19 case if they just planning ahead? How can you equip them as a health and safety specialist?
Okay, well, first of all, let's be realistic. As much of us are enjoying and hoping for, as we reach each level and go down to each level, we almost see it as some form of relief. But realistically, we need to accept the fact that if there is going to be a release, or when there is going to be a relief in level 3, there are actually going to be stricter health and safety measures that are going to be put in place as each lockdown level is eased at different levels, So it doesn't matter what form or what type of organization or business that you have, planning is making sure it's that you are prepared. And I think, take for example, I'm just going to use an example of religious gatherings, social gatherings, or events organizing. I mean, even though that may come at level 1 or level 2, which we're not 100% sure yet, but I think this is where you need to be proactive with your health and safety professional and your management and your staff, and actually start planning ahead. Even though the government hasn't set out the standards, but I think it's being proactive. And again, like I said, being unique to your business, understanding the scope of work and being proactive. So that even if one of you, number one, you're prepared, you have a plan in place, you have your control measures in place, but also in the case or in an event where somebody is contracted, is tested and screened, and they tested with the virus, that as a company, an organization, that you are systematically and mentally prepared, because this is part of your plan, is actually having an emergency response in place. So like I said, you can be systematically and mentally prepared, and so that your company knows how to control that exposure or that risk. And we've been given the guidelines, but again, it needs to be unique, and this is the importance of having your health and safety professionals involved.
And I've realized as well, that some companies or people in general are not really that conscious. It is like I don't know whether to put it as a dream but it's like something that's happening afar, for some people, and they think some miracle is going to happen. So with regards to now moving us from level 4 into easing it down to level 3, 2, and 1, what is the importance of these control measures with that regard? Because obviously we won't just miraculously move from level 4 to level 3 to 1, just miraculously. Obviously there needs to be some control measures, and people need to adhere to the rules that have been placed. So can you just maybe elaborate on that, what the importance is of these control measures?
Okay, first of all, I think it's very important, as much as health and safety procedures. I just want to get this scope first. Health and safety in a working environment generally is seen as an inconvenience, because the amount of paperwork is taken. Some people see it takes a lot of their time. It's registers, it's checklists, it's meetings, it's PPE that you have to wear. But the ultimate goal of health and safety, if I can just put it in very plain, simple terms, is that it's there for your benefit and for your family's benefit, that you get to go home safely. So ultimately, in general, this is the purpose of health and safety, So I think we all, currently, we have the same universal goal of going back to a state of normalcy, even though we don't know what our new state of normalcy will be, but it's going back to where we are having social gatherings, where people are back at business, the economy is flowing as the way that it's supposed to be. But we all, I think we need to adapt and have the same universal desire. If we can just adopt if we can just adopt as individuals, taking responsibility for our own health and safety, and being accountable to one another in this. So if our universal goal can be because the thing is, it's the longevity of this coronavirus. Yeah. Take, for example, like the recent letter from Cyril Ramaphosa said we could be living with COVID-19 for possibly another year, and our hopes is obviously to go back to a state of normalcy. But the question is, with the role of health and safety, if we are not taking our own health and safety into consideration and actually honoring the business and our government's regulations, and negligently just carrying on as what suits us personally, even though we have our differences of opinion, if we just negligently carry on not following those principles and procedures, we could look at possibly going backwards. So I think if we adopt a universal approach towards health and safety and take accountability as individuals in our everyday life, and also taking into account accountability of our co-workers and our managers and our employers, that this health and safety system that we are installing, that we all at the end of the day would like this COVID-19, the lockdown and the easing of it, to the longevity not to be so long, but to rather be shortened.
Right.
And I think the importance is accountability and just taking personal responsibility on a daily basis. And if I can just use an example, one of the clients that I've been discussing with quite recently is the fact that, I'm just going to use it as another example, is that this transport issue with public transport, the guys are at the ranks in the mornings, the police are there to try and control the amounts of people climbing into public transport, and they're adhering to it, or in the afternoons. But in the evenings on their way home, there's no one to control or measure it. So they pretty much, the drivers are turning and saying to the guys who need transport, they're saying, well, you're either going to have a ride now or you're not going to have nothing at all, and even if it's the transport is jam-packed. So what does an individual do as an individual? What do they do in that circumstance or situation? So again, that's where you can take personal accountability. You can either choose to say, no, I will rather not take the risk, or will I actually maybe take my own personal accountability and responsibility? Right. And if I've got to put on a mask, got to wear safety goggles, got to wear gloves, carry around hand sanitizers. Yeah. If I'm in a situation like that, then I say, let's rather take a look at taking the extra step for your own protection.
No. And I'd like to, I totally agree with that. And I'd like to commend, the South African government and the role that they've played, they've been at it like 100%, with regards to conscientizing people. And I think, just to add on what you are saying, is that people, it needs to be embedded in their DNA, to be, to comply with health and safety. Because it's not like as I was saying earlier, business as usual with regards to health and safety at work, and just complying at work and not thinking it actually impacts you at home. Actually, it's always been intertwined. If you get injured at work, you won't be able to have an income for home, or
correct.
Whatever provisions they've made for you won't actually last you for long. So whatever happens at work, it goes to home. Even worse with this COVID-19, obviously, it definitely will impact you at home. I mean, if you are not compliant or adhering to the safety requirements from your employers or the government stated compliance measures, then you're gonna infect people at home. With this virus, you're gonna contract it and infect them. So what I'm getting at is that people need to be conscientized. It needs to be second nature. It needs to be normalized. With the social distancing and taking precautions. What you touch, you must be always aware of what you're doing. Your every move, you must just be aware. You must be conscious of what you're doing. So I'd like to just, that's a good point, right?
And 100% I agree with you. I mean, even there's a saying in health and safety is that, repetition helps. And a lot of guys, you sit in meetings, you'll see there is a lot of repetition around health and safety.
Yeah.
And even your toolbox talks that you attend all the time. There is a general repetition, and you're seeing that in the media at the moment as well. But again, it's just that constant communication and also that repetition that actually, like you said, it becomes a habit that we all have naturally installed into us.
Continue with the conversation on our YouTube channel.